Hello and welcome to Fresh Faced Comics, the comic book podcast where a lifelong comic book reader guides its friend through the world of comics for the first time. My name is Joey Morgan, the aforementioned lifelong reader. With me, as always, is Jacob Licklider, the aforementioned newbie.
Flash!
You said you were
He
going to do that
fucked
at the
up
end
the
of the
multiverse.
You said you were going to do that at the end of the last episode, and for some reason I didn't believe you for a second.
You forget. Listen. It's Queen. It's the obvious pun is there.
That is not the first Queen reference you've made on the podcast.
It isn't.
But anyway, yeah. Today we're talking about Flash, specifically Flashpoint, the 5-issue comic book series, comic book miniseries event, written by Jeff Johns in 2011. We're covering all 5 issues of it, not any of the tie-ins, despite the fact that I am reading today from the fucking omnibus, which has all 56 tie-ins and the 5 prelude issues. It's fucking insane. I have them bookmarked with playing cards. It's
Meanwhile, I have the easy job. I have Flashpoint.
Yeah, just
all
the 5
just the
issues.
nice 5 issues, one thin volume.
If you want to see my my Omni recording setup, check my Twitter at Jomo with 3 underscores, and also while you're at it, follow Jacob at Newt5996. As always, thank you all so much for listening to the podcast. The Wonder Woman episodes did decent. Yeah, the second episode had a bit of a rough start, but we got there in the end.
Did we?
I mean, obviously not as big as like the first Wonder Woman episode.
Yeah, it happens. That's the thing of.
But yeah, thank you all so much for your support. It really does mean a lot. Also, if you're watching or listening, wherever you're watching or listening to us on, go check out our YouTube channel, Blood Donut Studios. We just released last week another brief comic scene excerpt, this time from Daredevil Born Again, starring my good friend Brian. I think it turned out really nicely. I'm hoping it did, because at the time of recording, I haven't edited it yet. So that's going to be fun. Anyway.
We also, coming up in the near future, have a special video coming up near the end of this month.
Yes. Yeah. More on that. Next episode.
Later. Next episode.
We'll talk about it more next episode. It'll be more apt then.
Yes.
All right. This is also, I just want to point out, this is our 26th episode of the podcast.
26th episode.
That is, and considering we release every other week, like that's pretty much a year's worth of content technically.
And the weirdness of I think our first episodes 1 and 2 went out within like a week of each other. I think.
Yeah.
Is what happened.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, so technically episode 27 will be our first proper like year of content coming out for the podcast.
Yes.
But this is really cool. This feels great, and I'm really happy with it.
Honestly, it feels like we've just started, honestly.
Yeah, like honestly, like it does not feel like a year has gone by, but it's been almost a year at the time of recording. Yes. So that's pretty crazy. All right, let's talk about Flashpoint. So before getting into this, what did you know about Barry Allen, aka the Flash, as a character?
So I had seen season 1 of the CW show, and like the Arrow crossovers like before that introduced him. So that was kind of my framework going into this.
Okay.
But I also understood that wasn't the most accurate framework from discussions with our friend Amity, that Barry's not an idiot.
That's true. That's very, very true. As I'm sure you realized very quickly reading this.
Yes. But I knew going in about Barry. I knew going in, one, Barry's kind of just as a character is kind of linked to basically the DC Crisis just as a thing, considering he originally died in Crisis.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
this is
one of the first major DC Comics character deaths. Yeah,
a death that stuck for a long time,
very long time, even longer than like Jason Todd's death or anything like that. Yeah, it's he has quite the history behind him. And what did you know about Flashpoint as a story going in?
So going in, oddly enough, I knew the twist.
Okay.
I knew the twist because
I hope it doesn't have to do with the memes that follow the twist everywhere.
Not initially. So this was like with Aquaman. This was a comic that a friend of mine growing up loved and sung the praises of.
Oh, cool.
Like the Jeff Johns Aquaman run, and then Flashpoint were the 2 big ones. And I knew this was basically an altered timeline, alternate universe. And I knew that it was the start of the New 52. That this was where the New 52 began, which is a choice. Certainly.
it's interesting. It's especially interesting because actually just a fun little thing about like because I mostly started like my actual like keeping up with current comics with the New 52. So I hadn't read like a ton of like immediately pre Flashpoint comics. But I've been collecting a bunch of single issues recently from my local comic shop, from like the late early 2000s. That's a weird sentence. But yeah, I've been collecting some issues from like the late early 2000s, and there are like advertisements in those for what would go on to become New 52 launch titles like the Batwoman run or Batman the Dark Knight by David Finch. And they didn't have that New 52 label yet. They weren't actually like part of the event yet. So those things that were sort of like held off for longer. You could certainly tell that this is an event that doesn't necessarily need to start the New 52, but it ends up doing that in the end anyway.
Yeah, and interestingly, it does for the fact that the New 52 was kind of a rush decision anyway.
Hmm.
Like
We all
it
know
does
this. Yeah,
it
it's
it was a
yeah.
really rushed decision. Like if they were going to reboot everything, they wouldn't announce like apparently this event was like already in the works and being announced not as like a universe starting just as a Jeff Johns is doing a Flash event. Uh
Mhm.
it does integrate the rebooting the universe aspect nicely in the plot.
Yeah, I would say so. And also properly getting into our non-spoiler section right now. I do want to bring up one of our first Twitter questions. Our friend English Giraffe at English underscore Giraffe, I can speak today, says, "How do you think this event affects DC, or how big do you think this event affects DC, both with New 52 and just in general, the general long run?"
I mean, well, the fact that the universe that it takes place in stuck around, like,
Yeah. And
is
that to this day, like the New 52 is still purported as a really good jumping on point for DC Comics.
yeah.
And I would actually agree with that still. You know, there are a lot of great New 52 titles that I still recommend to people as jumping on points. Hell, you know that. I've given them to you as reading for the
Yes, we have
podcast.
done a lot of them.
Hmm.
Our like most like a majority of our runs for characters that we have started have been the New 52 runs. And I think that's telling that despite the major issues, like they launched 52 books at once and
And that a solid number of them stuck and did leave their mark, I would say.
yeah. But a lot of them also weren't great apparently and just were canceled after like a volume's worth or so or a
Yeah.
year's worth. Like
Yeah, yep. And those poor single volumes are stuck with the number one in the spine, never to have a number two.
never to have a number two.
um, yeah.
Um, what
But
what what is nice is that what is especially nice about Flashpoint is it could be your first Flash story.
lucky for you, you had already seen a fair bit of like Barry Allen and just
Yeah.
general Flash content in our other comics that we cover on the podcast. So you don't need a proper like Flash or Barry Allen introduction story, I feel.
Yes. Well, because it's also very much where it really excels is when it takes the time to focus on Barry. Um,
Hmm.
like that's where John's is the best. Um, because there was I will say I had a fear going in because I know this is an alternate universe, so there's alternate versions of characters that we love. Being an event with DC, I was afraid Batman would take over.
And he is like the secondary character here, but also
He
it's very different.
is.
It's very different from any Batman that you know. So
Yes.
it's still interesting to see.
And it's not nearly like it's not nearly this suddenly becomes a Batman book.
Yeah.
Um, like I mean there are things that I knew about this version of Batman that weren't revealed in the that weren't explicitly revealed in the miniseries itself.
Hmm.
And I think specifically those revelations are a really good choice
Hmm.
because that's a good way to get people to read the tie-ins without
Hmm.
detracting away from the main book.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
There are a couple of
Um,
points where I think some of the info that is in the tie-in should have been a bit more explicit in the main book, which I'm sure we'll get to when we get into spoilers.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
uh,
But
yeah,
anyway, yeah, let's get into our next Twitter question. Kian, I believe. I
yes,
fucking forget now. Yeah,
Kian,
at Kian the Quark says it really is a shame that DC can't let the story slash universe go. Um, I'm a little conflicted on that opinion. On one hand, I think when it comes to comics, I can only think of two instances off the top of my head that have continued the Flashpoint story in a significant way. But if you're talking like adaptations, like using this story as a baseline for Flash stories, fuck yeah, way too
Yeah.
much.
Oh yeah. I'm gonna say my big problem is this is the Flash story that I know.
Yeah,
Like Joey could say, hey, the next block's gonna be a Flash block. Do you have any guesses on what story arc this could be? I don't know. I don't know. Like
yeah.
this is it.
Like ask any regular person on the street, what do you know about Flash comics? It's Flashpoint and Barry died once, and they like know how he died. That's about it.
That's it. Like,
Yeah.
and it's
So when it
kind
comes to
of a shame.
adaptations, it has the animated movie, which is great, and we'll talk about towards the end of this. We also have they vaguely did it like three different times on the Flash TV show, and it's also going to be the plot of the first live action Flash film, which brings us to our next Twitter question. Jamie at Jamie_season 7 says, "Why did DC decide to make it the plot of the first live action Flash film? I don't fucking know."
I think it's
Um,
honestly, I think it's because it's the one Flash story people know.
yeah,
Like that's why, and that's kind of a shame. Like you have people saying, "Oh, it's because they wanted to reboot their film universe." It's like maybe, but also the Flash film has been in the works, and it's been based on Flashpoint for such a long time.
yeah,
Like like this is what they're doing, and
yeah,
it's a film that like I'm like, is it actually going to come out? Maybe, maybe not.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, let's get into our next Twitter question. This one's just a bit of fun from our friend Rachel. Rachel the Gachel at Chelsea Shells says, "What is the point of the Flash?"
Uh, well, obviously the point of the Flash is the thing on his ears, the like
How
lightning, the
and
wings.
how pointed is the Flash?
Really, it's just those. Like you think maybe they draw his chin pointy. No, they don't.
And what is the point of flashing?
Okay, that I think that's assault.
How flashy is the point exactly?
I mean a lot. This is a Jeff Johns comic, so it's very blockbustery in places. I'm trying to
Thank
bring
you.
out actual discussion from this.
Thank you, Rachel. Very, very much appreciated. And
Insanity.
our last Twitter questions today come from our friend Mason at the GD256. Says, OMFG, I can actually comment about this story. I watched the movie a few years ago after my junior prom night. Fucking loved it. One, which alternate universe character in this story would you most want to see get a spin-off? So, aside from the obvious, because he's the one that's most expanded upon, who would you say?
Um, Cyborg, I think.
Hmm,
Well,
that's interesting.
either Cyborg or possibly this version of Superman, but that's not necessarily
There,
possible.
there is a three-part tie-in that goes over his whole backstory, and it's really cool.
Interesting.
There's even a play on his whole first meeting with Lois Lane. Like it's really cool. I like it. For me, oh man, well I see the thing for me is I've read all the tie-ins, so I do sort of have like spin-off content for most of these characters. For me, who doesn't get like any time at all? This version of Wesley Dodds. I want to know how Wesley Dodds as the Sandman works in this story.
Ooh, yes. Yeah, because the
That's
Sandman is here.
He is. He is. And then Mason's second question's two, why do you think this story in particular became so popular? So aside from the fact that once again we mentioned already that the New 52 is still purported as a good jumping on point for comics, what would you say is the actual appeal of the story?
Well, I think some of it partially is just the way Jeff Johns writes such just fast pace, really fun stories.
Hmm.
Like we've covered a lot of Johns. There's been one story that I haven't liked from Johns,
Hmm.
and that's one where he didn't understand how to pace things. Uh, like everything else, it's punchy. There is some genuine heart here and some really nice character moments.
Hmm.
Um, and um, it also doesn't rely on so much history like say I guess the other crises would. Like this one is because it wasn't meant to be a crisis, it's very easy to read. It's focused on Barry,
Hmm.
and that's a lot of it.
You know what I was thinking today, actually, before we recorded this, bringing up our connection to Doctor Who throughout this. Johns' style reminds me of a Doctor Who author named Terrence Dicks, um,
You're not wrong.
who, no matter how you feel about one of his stories, you can just so easily get into what he's writing, you know?
Yes.
So like for me at least, a good Doctor Who comparison would be like I don't love The Eight Doctors, which is a Terrence Dicks book. But it's so easy to read, so easy to get into. So the pacing is brilliant, and it still oozes that Terrence Dicks charm somehow, despite not being a good story. Jeff Johns does that same thing. You read one of his stories, even if you don't like it, like it's still super easy to get into, and you'll still read it in no time. You finished reading these 5 issues before the last episode of the podcast came out.
Here's what happened. I got the package with the book. I started. I was like, I started. I have a page of notes, and I have notes in front of me. I was taking notes, and I'm like, oh wait, I'm 2 issues down.
Yeah, you messaged me that
Like,
night. You're like, and I'm like, oh, you're almost halfway done already.
this is
um,
quick.
yeah, it
And
is.
what's especially interesting is I have some criticisms on how it's structured and how some of the things play out. I really enjoyed it. I just, there are just some things where it's like, hey, this could have been worked out better. But like, it is so easy to read.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. Also, and before we get into spoilers, because I'm sure we're coming up on that soon, I do want to bring up the art by Andy Kubert, who is a new artist to the podcast. What did you think of his work?
so, well, here's what's interesting: just the art in general. Um, it's hard. It's. I don't want to make comparisons to Jim Lee, um, but you almost kind of want to because it's a similar style, enhanced very much by Alex Sinclair's coloring of
Mhm.
this book. But there's a lot of emotion here. Like the beats really hit because of the art, and there's a lot of nice artistic storytelling,
Yeah.
um, as well as just playing around um, with facial expressions, um, doing a lot of interesting also perspective angles. Um, like in issue, I think it's 3. Um, there's a specific scene, sort of near the middle, and it's all done from this low angle to kind of contrast what's going on in the plot,
Mm.
and sort of play on expectations, because the characters are trying to find a different character in this universe for help, um, and it's drawn in such a way that gives it just this nice perspective. Kubert also plays around with shadows more than you might think.
Mm.
Um,
Yeah, definitely.
and also there's just a lot of personality in the way everyone is drawn. I think it's great. Um, I honestly I want to read more from Kubert just as an artist.
Cool.
Uh,
Very cool. And with that, let's really get into talking about this. Let's move into our spoilers section. Everyone, this is an official spoiler warning. We're jumping right into this. We're doing a complete cover of all 5 issues of Flashpoint. So starting now, we open up on issue 1, and I mean, you already knew that Nora Allen was dead. You know,
I knew
this
she
is this
I
is
knew
what
she
this is
was dead.
covering.
Yes.
I'm curious actually when you first saw these little like note scribbles here for like the inner the monologues talking over this flashback here. Who did you think it was?
I thought it might be Barry, but then
Okay.
it said, um, it eventually did this idea, it's like, uh, then it starts referring to Barry in the third person, like, oh, so it's not Barry.
Yeah.
Who is this?
Hmm.
I will say there's kind of a trick miss to not have this narration try to be there through the entire thing because it's only in this issue.
I
Um,
think it's sort of to make you forget what it is by the end,
yeah, that's possible. Um,
you know.
I do
Um,
love also just that we get this one in the first 2 panels. We understand the relationship between Barry and his mother
mhm,
and kind of who Barry is.
mhm.
Um,
Now, I'm gonna bring it up a couple times throughout this. I that you did watch the animated film for this. Um, I do fucking love the way the animated film does the flashback before like we actually get into the story to get to know who Nora Allen was. I love that flashback so
oh yeah,
much.
they extend it so nicely.
Hmm.
And it's weird, despite this being an event, the issues aren't double length issues, They're longer than a
Yeah,
normal
yeah,
issue.
they're a little longer, like 1.5 length maybe.
Yeah.
But that's about it. Yeah. Oh no, yeah. So we get the flashback here. Nora Allen is dead. Status unsolved. That whole thing.
Thing. My,
Um,
my 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 note was Barry and his mom is so sweet. Can we just get more of them? Like,
True. Yeah, absolutely.
we get this nice setup of who the Justice League are, and then we really open with Barry waking up in
Mhm.
Central City, and turns out there is a crime in progress. Um, Barry is still he's a forensic scientist, correct?
Yeah. Yep. Forensic scientist.
Forensic scientist. We get the first indication that something is wrong. Um,
Because they're calling Captain Cold Citizen Cold, who's apparently the city's greatest hero. Um, yeah,
yeah,
so Barry's put off by this, but he doesn't really think much of it. He starts to run out of the office, or out of the crime lab. He runs out of there, realizes that his flash ring is missing off of his hand, and he goes tumbling down the steps, right into his
landing
mom.
right onto his face.
And he sees his mom alive, older, very well, and we get a very nice scene between the two of them. So your note is immediately vindicated because yes,
Yes,
there is more between more of Nora Allen. And I just really like this relationship here that we see between the two of them. It's our first indication, obviously that like something is not right with this world, but also it's really just nice to see their relationship. Um, she questions like what the hell he's talking about at first, but then we just get this really nice, almost full page of the two of them hugging because Barry just can't believe his mom is here. He doesn't really question it much at first, but then he gets into it. And then he starts asking her like, "What's going on here?"
it's like
Um,
where's his dad? Well, his dad died
mhm.
3 years ago from a
um,
heart attack,
and then Barry just comes out with it. He says, "I'm the Flash, and something's wrong. Someone must have." And Nora doesn't know who the Flash is. Um,
and they don't know who the Justice League are. So
Yeah. Barry asks about Superman. She doesn't know who Superman is. And then he goes, "Well, what about Batman?" She goes, "Batman? Well, of course I've heard of Batman. Who hasn't?" And then we meet him. First off, this costume.
oh,
I love this costume.
it's so suiting. Now, interestingly, one of my kind of issues with this first issue is this sequence. Just
Really.
just that it's here. I think it could have been moved to like the top of issue two. Because I really like the way this issue ends on a cliffhanger, but I feel
Mhm.
it's undercut by us getting to know who Batman is as a reader.
But I feel like if you spent the entire first issue strictly from Barry's perspective in a 5 issue event series, you don't really get to feel any more of the world, because we use this scene and the whole like cyborg sequence coming up to get to know where the rest of our characters stand.
Which is
And
true.
most of
It's
it
why I also think just as a miniseries, this should have been six. Just give Johns a little more time to get just a little more of sort of the essentials of the world building down.
so
Uh,
I could see that. And here's what I would do. I know your thing is you want an extra issue between 2 and 3 to world build. I don't think that's how you do it. I think you put an extra issue between 1 and 2. And if we were to take your advice and not have Batman in this issue, in this first issue as much, and lead up to the cliffhanger at the end of part one, then you go into the second issue, take it entirely from Batman's perspective, and lead up
yes,
to his meeting with Barry,
yeah,
and
that
then
works.
go from
That works
there.
too.
Have issue 3 be issue 2, and
Yeah,
so on.
well, and that also would help us be able to set up some of the tensions going on overseas at this time that I feel doesn't get like the reason there's a war happening doesn't get addressed really like
I mean, again, I know you're gonna have this complaint a lot throughout this discussion, but like the world building is there. It's just in tie-ins.
yeah.
Like
Well,
and
the war thing is my big one because that becomes the driving force of so much of the back half of this book.
hmm.
Like it's like just give us a reason. That, and I'm gonna be honest, I don't like a certain character's just design.
Oh, fuck off. Anyway, so Batman's chasing down a character called Yo-Yo, and he asks where the Joker is, and we don't
Yeah,
know what any of this is about. Clearly, something's different.
so is
Um,
Yo-Yo Harley like
no, separate
no?
character.
Okay, because in the movie,
She's sort of characterized like Harley.
They
Yeah,
they
yeah.
cast. I think it's Hynden Waltz playing, and Hynden Waltz
Oh,
has
seriously?
played
I didn't
Harley.
even know that that was her.
I
Okay,
think
that's
it's Hynden Waltz, but it's someone clearly playing Harley, and I'm like, is this supposed to be Harley?
yeah.
Um,
It's not, but
what I especially like is we don't get to know who the Joker is. I like that
yeah.
that's kept for the tie-ins.
hmm
Um,
So Batman throws Yo-Yo off a building, and Cyborg rescues her, um, and
and it,
we know immediately that like this Batman is different. This is a Batman that kills. You know, he's completely okay with it because clearly something is different here. He is much more fucked up than your average Bruce Wayne. Um,
yes,
but more on that later. So we see that Cyborg is trying to recruit Batman for something, specifically some kind of fight against. I don't think they actually mentioned Wonder Woman or Aquaman here, do they?
I don't think they do.
Not yet, no. But we get a nice two-page spread here of a bunch of characters that we'll get more into later. But
And they're all twists on characters.
yeah, who did you know here right off the bat?
Um, well, I knew Wesley Dodds Sandman.
Mhm.
Um, I recognized Element Woman,
Well, yeah, obviously
but I
Sandman fan.
thought it wasn't. It turns out it's not that one. It's another one who is a different Element Woman.
Yeah, but
Um,
still like same name. Yeah.
Same name. And then I recognized sort of the Marvel family just based on the lightning.
Okay,
And
cool,
then
cool, cool.
is the Green Lantern Abin Sur?
That is Evan Sir. Yep.
Yes.
Yeah.
Um,
And then you didn't know anyone else?
no.
Not Captain Cold?
Oh, I did know Captain Cole.
Okay, cool. All right. Yeah, all the rest of them you get like brief mentions of, like the Outsiders there, Enchantress and Shade and all of them. Nothing crazy, but you know, it's just cool to see them there.
This is Jeff Johns being like, well, this is an alternate universe with no Justice League. I can
Yeah,
go crazy with all the DC characters I love.
yeah, and also one of the big things that like was pushed here that you'll also see that you would also see in the tie-ins is that the characters that are get a real spotlight here were also meant to be like setting up for who's going to be like big players in the new 52. So like Enchantress and Shade being there, that was a setup for Justice League Dark. There was a mini series called with Frankenstein and whatever, I can't remember what it was, but it led into a new 52 series called Frankenstein Agent of Shade. So there were like a bunch of like tie-ins and characters that show up here that were meant to be like big players in the new 52 and were at least early on.
Yes. Which again is it's nice, especially since you get just a flavor. One, you flavor this universe, and you're just flavoring characters that people may not know.
hmm
Because like everybody knows the Justice League, but not everyone knows Shazam slash Captain Marvel.
hmm
At
Yeah.
least they didn't in 2011. That kind of has changed now a little bit because
Yeah, right. Isn't it weird how that quick turnaround came? But also, again, that's very much a Jeff Johns thing. You know why Shazam is so big today. Um, But anyway, more on that later. Well, more on that in a later episode, I guess, of the podcast. But anyway, we catch back up with Barry. Barry's going to find Iris and see what she's up to. He asks for Iris Allen. She doesn't know who that is. Iris West. She's not with Barry. She doesn't even know who Barry is. Um,
what's
so
nice is that we see here, but like she doesn't even talk to him.
yeah, yeah. So Barry leaves. He goes to catch up with his mom again. We get a
His
brief
mom
glimpse of Reverse Flash here, or
is
Professor
of a
Zoom, whatever you want to
mysterious
call him.
yellow blur.
Yes.
Um,
Who
which
speaks to Nora before. So like you know who it is. They were
right.
also in the prelude to Flashpoint, they were building up that Eobard Thawne was back. So
He was okay. At least they did that in the
yeah,
prelude
yeah,
because
that's about like the only thing that Road to Flashpoint does though.
like
Um,
how do you
but
make a
yeah, because
prelude?
the whole thing, like you know, I mean, not spoilers or anything, and it's a spoiler section, but this whole story relies on the fact that there's a twist ending as to like how this world was even created. So how do
Yeah.
you set that up in a road to? You don't really. You just set up the fact that Reverse Flash exists. So
Yes.
um,
And yeah, and the reverse flash is basically our red herring.
yeah.
But we're back. Then we go back. Then we go back to the rooftop.
We learned that a lot of these people that Cyborg has called in are only willing to join Cyborg's team if Batman is involved, because Batman is like a natural leader or some shit like that. Um, so yeah, I don't
And
know.
here we get the one clip that like Atlantis and Themyscira are at war with each other.
Mhm.
Like Western Europe has been sunk into the ocean. The UK is New Themyscira. It's like everyone they both want to rule the world, and they don't actually say. Again, they don't really say how, like why, what led to
Mhm.
this point. which is interesting.
And also interestingly, because I know that you know that the animated film included some of the stuff like from the tie-ins to expand on the world. But one thing that they do actually with because there were two separate miniseries, two separate three-part miniseries for one for Aquaman, one for Wonder Woman, where and they continuously overlapped and told this actually really long journey that Arthur and Diana had to get to the point that they're at in this story. And the Flashpoint movie really simplified that. Like they made it like fucking nothing compared to how intricate it is in the tie-ins. So there's a lot more about like the relationship between Themyscira and Atlantis leading up to this. But obviously that doesn't get touched upon here.
Yeah,
Also interestingly, Shazam is not Shazam here. He's Captain Thunder.
it's Captain
Uh,
Thunder, and it's not. And I think
and
these.
it's not like all it's not the Shazam family. It's all the kids form into one being, and that is Captain
Yes.
Thunder.
Also,
Um,
Element Woman is pretty
Amazing.
insane.
Yes.
Like,
I remember I was talking to you as I was rereading this. I was like, oh, I forgot she was like a big part of this. And you commented that she's kind of written like Delirium from the Sandman.
I mean, she totally is. Like,
Yeah, yeah.
that's which also I had a note in my notes. So is Dream still trapped in this universe? Like,
um, I mean, I guess so. If Wesley Dodds is the Sandman, I guess so.
yeah, Dream must still be trapped and is
Yeah.
now underwater
That
because
you know, I had never considered that. That is very
yeah, like
interesting. That's amazing. Anyway, so Bruce, not Bruce. I was about to say Bruce. Anyway, Batman decides not to join Cyborg's team and finds out that as he leaves, like everyone else says, like, oh, if Batman's not in, then I'm not in, and they all fuck off and leave Cyborg alone. Barry decides that since Batman seems to be the only person that still exists in this world that he knows, he goes to Gotham City and goes to Wayne Manor. He breaks in. He asks for Alfred. Alfred is nowhere to be seen. He throws
and this
the
is just it's one the sequence leading up to this is it's just a great use of art. Like
oh yeah.
there's barely any dialogue, um, but he goes and finds the Bat Cave and he descends
And
and
he sees first off the Batcave is like nothing.
it is
It's a couple workbenches, some tools,
what
some memorabilia, very little. It's a family portrait of Thomas, Martha, and Bruce. He sees a glass case with a gun in it, and the frame photo of the Wayne family is smashed. Um,
also what's interesting. Like instead of a usual giant 2-page spread of like the Bat Cave, it's this tiny third of a page. That's it.
yeah, yeah, that's all.
It just
Yeah, it's
makes you
because
feel
it's nothing.
small and
Yeah.
insignificant.
Mhm.
Um, but then Batman shows up,
And he
flips him
throws
over
Barry
a
against
table.
a table and he interrogates him. He asks who he is. Barry starts calling him Bruce, and this Batman says, "Bruce Wayne is dead. I watched him die." Barry says, "This is my God, you're Thomas
Thomas
Wayne,"
Wayne.
and it's such a great cliffhanger. And I just I love it. I like that they do that even without taking off his mask. Like you just see this him as Batman, and that's
And
when
you
you
haven't seen his
realize,
eyes at all either.
yeah,
Like
yeah.
it's just these glowing red sockets. Also, like again, I really hope the tie. I know you said the tie-ins go into this. I really hope that they give a good explanation for why Alfred isn't there and
I
why.
I did not reread the tie-ins going into this. Obviously, I didn't have time to reread all the tie-ins going into this, but I can't remember any comments on Alfred. They do a whole Jim Gordon thing though, and
Yes,
it is something.
it is something.
It's pretty great. But yeah, I can't remember what they do with Alfred, honestly. They do some stuff with Dick. I know there's a Jason appearance, but that's about it as far as like the extended Bat family goes.
I mean, obviously, Damien doesn't exist in this universe.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I would imagine. Okay.
That would certainly be
Um.
something.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
I
we move
mean,
in.
well, how old is Talia al Ghul, really?
I mean, I don't know. Like,
Questions to ponder another day. We go into Flashpoint number 2. Great cover for this one. I love the cover of this one.
yeah,
Um, we get into this. We see Deathstroke. We meet Slade Wilson, who has his own
and
little crew on this ship. Um,
he's a
uh,
pirate.
he's a pirate. He has a
He has
Clayface on this ship with him,
he
and
has a Jolly Roger flag. That's his mask.
it's so good.
And what's nice is that the little almost like little prologues to each of the rest of these issues have just this nice little hint of world building. Um,
Yeah, yeah. I remember actually really liking the 3-part Deathstroke tie-ins. They were pretty good. But yeah,
Yeah.
their ship is attacked then,
Well,
specifically
we're
by
starting by him torturing someone who I think is Aqualad,
possibly,
like
I believe so.
possibly.
Maybe Garth. Yeah,
Yeah, I mean that's who it kind of looks like.
yeah.
Um, but like, yeah, he's
So
getting electrocuted.
yeah. Then the ship is attacked by Atlantis. Or actually, first they arrive on Paris, which is sunk into the ocean. Um,
And you see
just
the
it's
Eiffel
a
Tower.
very striking image. I like it. But yeah, they're attacked then by Atlantis, Aquaman, and you see Orm is actually working with him, which is pretty cool. And
Yeah.
they go after Deathstroke.
Oddly enough, it's Aquaman's
Interestingly,
design that I don't love. Like,
oh really? I thought it would be the Wonder Woman one that you didn't like.
the design for Wonder Woman is fine, but like,
I don't mind. I mean, the Aquaman design is literally just a red Arthur Curry costume.
it's also because in the movie they make him they exaggerate it even more.
Yeah, the movie makes him look a bit weird, but I don't mind it here.
Like they just make him look like a Frank Miller creation in the movie.
Yeah, they kind of do. Looks like he's drawn like Frank Miller in that, but by Frank Miller in that. Anyway,
Yeah.
so interestingly, actually, Aquaman says no survivors, and he seems to jab the trident into Deathstroke. But he's alive in the tie-ins, if I remember correctly.
Is he?
there's yeah, there are stories like with him like after this event
Well, does
happened.
Deathstroke have a healing factor type thing?
I'm not sure if that was the explanation they went with in the tie-ins. I forget honestly. Like I said, it's been a while since I read them, but I
I
don't know.
mean,
I don't
doesn't he
remember
have a
if he's.
healing factor in like the Universe Prime though? Or
Yeah, yeah,
yeah, so like I
yeah.
imagine that's the obvious explanation because what's really interesting is you brought up Doctor Who. I brought up to that like this as an alternate timeline, it does a mostly good job of pulling what I like to call the Inferno factor for writing parallel universes. That you see different choices are made by people, but
Mhm.
for the most part,
And
they're
what led them to becoming this person?
yeah,
Yeah.
but they're not fundamentally different people.
Yeah, yeah, like honestly, like getting into Thomas Wayne now as we move into the next scene, like we see like what I mean, just the simple fact that Bruce died that night instead of him would clearly make him a very angry and bitter Batman. And I really like that. I like that just how that pathway changes just a tiny bit. You know, that bullet shoots a different person and it totally changes everything,
I
you know?
mean, a child died instead of two adults, and that makes someone push away any sort of support system clearly,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
have
Clearly, there's going to be no form of Bat family to go along with this Batman. You
yeah.
know, he's not going to work with anyone, let alone not a Justice League. Certainly not an inner Bat family. You
Like
know.
he starts doing American torture tactics on Barry Allen. He breaks one of his fingers.
Yeah, yeah. Interestingly, also that's a really cool part of this version of Batman. That like because he's a doctor, he knows exactly how to break people's bones.
Yes.
So that's
Um,
just cool. I like that.
also, it's he's also just drawn like a villain,
Mhm.
like
He is. Yeah, yeah.
which
He really
is
is.
again, this is not supposed to be Batman. Batman.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
it's a very important distinction to make because characters like this become popular when you warp a popular good guy into a bad guy.
Mhm.
Um,
And what's interesting about this is that he doesn't even necessarily act like a hero either. You say he's drawn like a villain. He kind of is a villain
he's a
too,
villain.
isn't he?
He was going to kill not Harley
Literally,
Quinn.
I mean, the way this scene goes is literally the only thing that makes Thomas work with Barry is that he hears about this other world where his son is alive and he isn't, and he thinks that that alone makes this alternate world that Barry comes from better, and he will help him achieve that. But
And
any other
interestingly,
circumstances, what does
it
this
takes a
Batman act
bit.
like? Yeah.
It takes a bit to convince him because Barry doesn't have superpowers. It takes memories crashing in of
Mhm.
this universe to Barry. Hopefully nobody hears. There's someone blasting music outside my window, and I fucking hate it. I
I
don't think
cannot
it's
hear
come
it, so you're good.
good. And one, I love the way it's drawn with just this one black eye, one red eye,
Mhm.
with the lightning bolt between them both. And
Yeah.
then Barry has a ring and can prove, I was the Flash, even though it's a yellow Flash suit.
Mhm. Um, yeah, he thinks that that's Eobard Thawne playing some kind of trick on him. Now, what did you know about Eobard Thawne going into this? I'm assuming just the CW Flash show.
The CW Flash show that he was evil Flash, evil
Hmm.
Flash can run really
And
fast.
we get a nice little Cliff Notes history lesson on Eobard Thawne here. You know why he is the way he is and why he hates Barry.
I love that it's like, what kind of name is Eobard?
Yeah,
One from the future.
it's great. I like that in the movie they changed that to the 25th century kind. I don't know. It's so much funnier here. It's just like, oh, one from the future. It's just a really stupid line, but I like it. Anyway, so yeah,
But
so
there's this
Tom,
idea that he's being taunted.
yeah.
Um,
And Barry concludes that Eobard is the whole reason that this that the world is the way it is. Eobard's done something to the timeline and changed things just enough so that it creates this hell world where he never became the Flash and Thomas is Batman and so on and so forth. But yeah, so then Thomas asks about Bruce and he's told that like Bruce is alive in that other world where Barry comes from, and Thomas decides to help Barry. But again, I just want to bring that up that like in other circumstances, if we just followed Thomas's Batman regularly, I think we'd be following a like a villain's journey, for
oh,
lack of a better
we
phrase.
would.
You know, um,
He's not a hero.
there's
Like,
I won't spoil what it's in, but it is something we're gonna read someday, where somebody utilizes the Thomas Wayne Batman character in a villainous way.
that makes me excited.
Yeah.
But yeah, what's
Um.
also special is again, it took this long for Thomas to actually come around to the idea that maybe this guy is telling the truth.
Mhm.
Never mind
But
that he already found the Batcave and seemed to know where the Batcave was.
yeah, but really, like it's not even the idea that he thinks Barry could be telling the truth. Just if Barry is telling the truth, even the slight possibility of his son still being alive, that's infinitely better than whatever world he's living in.
It's also going to form a very nice parallel for the climax and the decision Barry has to make to restore the universe because
Yeah.
his mom's dead
Hmm.
in the universe proper. Is his dad dead in the universe proper or?
Depends on when you're looking at.
Oh, right, yeah,
Yeah, yeah. Typically, yes, though. Typically, he's still alive. Yeah,
yeah. I was gonna say he's usually in prison because that's like
yeah,
that's part now Barry's motivation because um that's what it does.
yeah.
Anyway, we cut.
Anyway, so we go to some more tie-in bait. We meet Steve Trevor. Steve Trevor is racing through London, being chased by Amazons. And eventually is stopped by Wonder Woman. We meet Diana here. I really do like her design here. Actually,
I
it's
like her
really cool.
design. I don't. And it might just be because we've just done a bunch of George Perez's characterizations. This is the characterization where I'm just like, okay.
It's come on, it's not bad. It really
It's
isn't.
just it's like it doesn't feel like the Diana that I enjoy. Um, which also begs the question how much of history was actually changed in Butterfly affected? Because I have a theory that that's kind of supported later on in the text that other events were unintentionally changed, not through the butterfly effect, just by the mere act of changing history. Um,
Hmm.
not by because obviously um, like why isn't there a Superman? Why would change it? Why would letting Barry's mother live mean that there isn't a Superman on Earth?
Yeah,
It's just things like that. Where it's like, ooh, that's interesting. But yeah, Steve is
yeah.
able to resist the lasso of truth a little bit.
Yeah, which I think is
Eventually,
really interesting. But of course, she wraps it around his neck, asks him what he's doing here. He's here with the United States Special Forces. He's here to find Lois Lane. She asks who Lois Lane is, and I really do like this line. Lois Lane is a Pulitzer Prize winning reporter known for her exclusive interviews with the world's greatest superhumans. She's been embedded in New Themyscira for the last 8 months, secretly gathering intel on you and the Amazons for Cyborg. Lane knows every movie you're about to make. She requested extraction, and I volunteered. She's also one of the most beautiful women I've ever met. And then she kills him for that. So that's
and
pretty
she,
great. Um,
yes.
also just really interesting play on the Diana Steve dynamic. Um, I don't know. I kind of like it. Just
I mean,
again in this dark twisted mirror of the DC universe, I
yeah.
really like that.
I mean, especially since, like, obviously the whole idea is that Steve never crash landed on Themyscira and
Yeah,
things
I
happen
mean he's
differently.
just been doing United States Special Forces work this whole time.
Anyway, we get to Barry's plan. to get
Yeah,
his
which
powers
is
back.
to recreate the accident that made him the Flash in the first place. So he's going to strap himself in an electric chair and surround himself with chemicals and whatever, and on a rainy, stormy night in Gotham, um, and hope to get struck by lightning and get his Flash powers back. Which, when you say it out loud, really is as stupid as it
My
is.
my note my note here in issue 2 is Barry is a fucking idiot.
He's super smart, I swear. Um,
Like
you'll see it more when we start doing the Francis Manipul stuff.
I was
Anyway.
like, hopefully this doesn't work.
And it doesn't. Like I
And
really
it
like that
doesn't.
they don't pull their punches on that. Like he gets struck by lightning, is covered in acid and other chemicals, and is fucking burned alive. Like what did he
I'm
expect?
also utterly curious about like, okay, what are these chemicals? Because they're very, very colorful. So I'm like, ooh, I have no idea what they could be. Probably a
Yeah.
lot of them are salts that are being
I do
superheated.
also like the idea that Barry knows exactly what chemicals he was doused with that night. Like I imagine like after the accident happened, like he spent his time researching like what caused these powers. Was it the chemicals? Was the lightning something completely different? So I like that he just sort of knows that. That's really
Yeah.
interesting.
Well, I mean, I imagine he also had to take inventory of what was shattered that night. Like,
Hmm.
here is what we lost. Here is what we need to reorder.
Yeah,
Because labs, saying as someone who works in research, labs go through chemicals really quickly.
I would
Like,
imagine. I would
it's
imagine.
quick. But our last page is Barry Allen, bloody and burnt through a bulb.
Yes.
Um, and
Um, yeah.
yeah, I kind of had to laugh. 'Cause like, oh Barry, you thought this would work.
But we go into Flashpoint number 3, and I gotta love this. The Flashpoint is a dark reflection of the DC universe. One thing that hasn't changed is the president of the United States in 2011, Barack Obama. Um, I love that. I think that's great. I don't know.
I love that Cyborg is branded Made in America.
Yeah, right.
Uh, what's also fascinating, and what I think John does really interestingly is he doesn't pull his punches when it comes to the corruptness of just the U.S. government in general,
Mhm.
um, and not in like a he's very much like you do not want to rely on the United States government for help.
Yeah,
Because
yeah,
Cyborg is kind of in a Superman Dark Knight Returns role, um, though
yeah.
I would argue
Well,
it
I
makes
mean,
more
but also
sense.
like I mean, we get from Cyborg's very first scene that he's not at the same time.
Yes, and also I think it works better here with Cyborg because Cyborg's not Superman.
Yeah, there's that. But also I will argue that Dark Knight Returns Superman does work. Anything after that does not work. Um, but more on that later. Mwah. Anyway, yeah, so we catch back up with Barry, who is in immense pain.
He is a mummy.
They have wrapped him in many bandages and
and,
uh
and
and
this idiot because my note my second note my first note was, is this President Obama? Yes, it is.
yes, it is.
Like
Which again, I love that. Go ahead. Sorry.
my second note is Barry is fucking insane because he says I just need a bigger bolt of lightning.
Yes, that's all you need. Also, Barry gets struck with another blast of anti-amnesia. His memories get flooded with more of what this current timeline is like. Interestingly, they get more personal now. So like before he was getting like big world events, and here we get like one of those. We see that Abin Sur is with the US government. But then we also see like him with his mother growing up, him in the lab working with one of his coworkers. So the memories get more personal, and his life in this timeline becomes more in line with what he should know now that the timeline has changed.
And you can really see the internal conflict with like it's like especially whenever his mother comes up just because it's like I could have had a happy life with my mother. I'm not married or the Flash in this timeline, but I'm happy.
Hmm.
But he He
He
pulls
goes
the.
back out on the roof, and as he's about to get himself strapped back into the chair, he is struck by a gigantic bolt of fucking lightning, so
I
big.
love the way this sequence is drawn.
Yeah, so big that it knocks Thomas off of the rooftop. He's about to land on on this like gate that has like a spiky point on the end. And as Barry's in pain from the bolt of lightning, he gets his powers back, runs around, saves Thomas from landing on the gate. I agree with that. I love the way that whole sequence is drawn. It's amazing.
Just that, and like just the way that the bandages, and it's kind of gory. Like we aren't shying away from the gore here,
Yeah,
because
yeah.
this man has burns over all of his body.
Yeah, and
Um,
he's starting to break through the bandages, and you see it more when he saves Thomas. Like, I really like that. Meanwhile, over in Youth Mascara, more tie-in bait, and we meet Lois Lane, and it's always just great to see Lois Lane and imagine Dana Delaney's voice. I will never get tired of that. But also, you got a nice surprise here
yeah,
because
so
Etrigan the Demon is here.
yeah, so she's in the underground. She's trying to find the resistance. And then we hear some rhyming of "Down here I heard your lovely breath, and wondered if it brought us death."
It's so good. I don't remember all the characters here, but we meet the Resistance. We have Etrigan here, Grifter. I remember the thing. There's the green thing on the bottom is called the Canterbury Cricket. He has his own single tie-in issue. It's amazing. But I can't remember who the other two are off the top of my head. But I don't think you knew any of these characters outside of Etrigan, right?
I didn't know. I just knew Etrigan because I initially thought, like, is this guy on the left supposed to be Jason?
He is
Like,
not.
why
No,
would Jason be in the UK? Also,
Grifter is a very different character.
I looked him up, and he's got to start in Image Comics, and that's just like,
Yep,
that tracks.
and he is a Jim Lee creation actually.
Still tracks that he's very 90s with just this like
Oh yeah, I mean
giant
yeah, I
gun
mean look at him,
sword.
yeah.
I think other
uh,
multiple sword. How many swords does he have? He has at least two swords.
at least two, yeah.
Uh,
Anyway, so yeah, okay, so we cut back to Thomas and Barry. Barry's wounds are healing finally. He's able to use his powers to I love this bit. He's able to use his powers to take the Reverse Flash costume that came out of his ring and reweave the fabric in it to make it a regular Flash suit. Which is really
well,
stupid, but I
well,
love.
actually, what's interesting? That's what the movie does.
Well,
In
no, yeah,
here,
he says that here too.
no, he says, but with the chemicals and materials in the manner, it's easier to make a new one. He just makes a new suit from stuff that Thomas Wayne has lying around.
Huh. Okay, that is
In the
right.
movie, they
Okay.
simplify it, so he just alters that suit. It's like,
Okay,
no,
that's right. Wow. Okay, that just shows how many times I've watched the movie. All right then.
yeah.
I think I tricked myself into thinking that. Meanwhile, I just reread this comic like 2 3 days ago.
I mean,
Um,
did you reread it through your Omni, or?
I did.
Okay, I'm curious. How's the Omni
The Omni
bookmarks
reading
holding
is
up?
going great. My playing cards are coming in handy. It all works out.
Okay,
Um,
I just need to periodically check because again, I am reading from a considerably thinner volume.
It's all
Um,
right. It's all right. Be be jealous of my thicker volume. That's all you need to know.
okay.
Anyway, they start doing a bit of research on this world and what's different about it.
On an
Um,
old ass computer, even for 2011, like,
yeah.
um, which I think is great. Barry's trying to figure out, um, what might have changed.
So we see
And he's
that Hal Jordan is still just a pilot. Um, and Abin Sur is still alive, so Hal Jordan never got the Green Lantern ring. We find out that the rocket that was supposed to crash land near Smallville instead crash landed in Metropolis and killed 35,000 people. Um,
35,000 people.
and the government, being the government, covered this up and never actually gave an official explanation as to who attacked U.S. soil. And I don't know, I just kind of like that idea. It just Johns writes the government is very shady throughout this whole thing, and
Oh,
it's
he
really
does, and
interesting.
it's.
Yeah,
I mean, it's very topical. This is only 2 years into Obama's presidency,
3
and
years.
2 years. It's 2011.
Yeah, you're
Oh,
right. Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
Well, 2.5 years.
yeah. Um, and the U.S. has continually in the entire 21st century, lied to provoke wars overseas, uh, which is definitely something that Johns is playing off of,
Yeah.
and something that I think it's especially interesting with where this issue
Oh, actually,
goes.
I forgot this. There's this great line that Thomas has here. No one ever took credit for the attack, but the government claimed it was from a terrorist cell in South America. That's why the U.S. invaded, and then he gets cut off. And oh my God, that line.
It's like who'd we
who
invade
who
this
did they
time?
invade? Who did they blame on this literal alien crash land?
Oh, well, they blamed the communists in South America, Joey. It's what the U.S. government has always done.
Oh fuck, I love that. I think that oh that's so interesting. Anyway, so they go to Cyborg for help. Cyborg is going to get them into this government facility where they kept the rocket after it crash landed in Metropolis.
And I
Uh,
love the way Vic is characterized here.
yeah,
Because
yeah, just someone that just like
it's clear that
genuinely
Teen
wants to do the
Titans
right
hasn't
thing.
happened. The new Teen Titans hasn't happened.
Yeah.
So he's
Um, so while he's working for the government, he is still someone like very conflicted in his morals. I
and
really
I
like.
think and I think what's really hinted at is that he's on his own. He really hasn't had a support network.
Mhm,
Like I imagine his mom still probably died the way she did in this universe, and maybe it took his dad with him.
mhm.
Like after
Actually, you know what? Going back to Mason's question for a little bit, I would love to see like just just where the non-Earth characters lie in the Flashpoint universe. They in a world that where they never these unearthly characters never invaded Earth or never came down to Earth, or maybe they were and it was covered up or something. Like someone like Darkseid, like what's he up to?
yeah, I was gonna
Completely
say
unprompted by Superman or anything like that, you know?
there's a ton of Jack Kirby bullshit just out there in the DC
Yeah,
universe.
or Martian Manhunter. Like I could see that being another Superman-esque situation where he just came down to Earth and the government took him and covered it up.
Yes,
Yeah,
possibly even killed him, and
yeah,
we'll see why.
yeah.
Uh,
Like that's something I would have loved to have seen. But I mean, hey,
yes,
I mean, maybe there's still room for it. I guess they're still doing Flashpoint things to this day. So,
yes. But Thomas says, right, I'm in to Cyborg, but much like his son would, but we build the army my way, with
mhm.
soldiers of my choosing, starting with the Flash. The next person on my list came out of the rocket that destroyed Metropolis. And he convinces Cyborg to hack into the government files, which fairly easy job. This is the U.S. government; they can be incompetent with data security, uh, but
And also it's Cyborg.
it's also Cyborg. They find a mysterious Project Superman where they found something inside that they call Subject One. Um, so they go to a rebuilt Metropolis
They
into the
go
sewers.
into the sewers. They go underground. They enter this sort of bunker. The most sad thing ever shows up. They see a glass case labeled Subject 2, and it seems to be a dog skeleton.
Again, they murdered Crypto, the bastards.
Fucking, I
That is a note that I have. Uh,
just just when I didn't think I could hate the U.S. government anymore.
yes. Uh,
They kill crypto. Um, anyway, so they get to this giant vault with a big Krypton S on it. Um,
and
uh,
what's especially interesting, so Thomas throws some batarangs into the guards, and he prefaces with coated in atomidite, general anesthetic, doctor's choice, which I think is really interesting because it feels kind of like Barry's starting to rub off on him just a little bit, and Barry's like code of like ethics in
that's
superheroing.
possible. Yeah.
Uh, it also could be that some of this is also a mask, and he does care a bit more. It could go either way. Uh,
Mhm. But yeah,
but
so
yeah,
they get into this vault and they see Superman, who
and this
is
is what I'm talking about with the use of shadows, and just look at the way that like we are angled looking up at Superman,
the reflections of Batman, Flash, and Cyborg there in the glass there. Like I love that. Oh, that's so well done.
and he's
But
just this
Superman looks,
gaunt.
yeah, he's almost emaciated, just completely deprived of any sort of nourishment. Has never seen the sun a day in his life. He's surrounded by this red light, which I'm assuming the government figured out how to surround him in red sun energy.
Yeah, I
Um,
mean, even if not, they are keeping him like far underground where the sun's
yeah.
rays don't shine anyway. So he doesn't even speak English. Like, uh, but they are almost then immediately cornered by backup from the U.S. government.
Mhm.
They are breaking
The
their way out. Um,
and they get their way out back into the sewers. They break out of there,
the
and
beautiful morning sun shines
and
down.
Kal-El sees the sun for the first time, and he floats in the air and burns these guards to a crisp, or burns one guard to a crisp, at least his arm. He takes off and then flies away, and he's just gone. And then Thomas, Vic, and Barry are immediately surrounded by a bunch of soldiers, and that is the end of issue
Jesus.
3. Just some great art there. I love it.
Just some, and again, these issues don't have a whole like they have dialogue, but like Johns is a master of knowing when to cut down on dialogue and just let the art tell the
Yeah,
story.
I think issue 3 is probably our most dialogue heavy so far,
Yes,
wasn't it?
well, because it's got that fairly long exposition sequence, which needs to be there, but that's also kept interesting by Barry being kind of an ADHD motherfucker and
Hmm.
just
And,
just
and also this world being completely new. So anything
yes,
Johns is saying about this world, you just want to know more
you
about,
just got to know. Also, this is the point where I actually started to feel for Barry as a character, like a bit more like as a full, well-rounded character,
Hmm.
at least as he's portrayed. Because fish out of water in issue 1, issue 2, he's trying to get his powers back, and issue 3 is where we can actually see him as the Flash.
Yeah,
And it's so it kind of establishes that because and it really works.
yeah.
Now, as a character, I'm hoping we get more stuff in the actual ongoing run, just a little depth
Oh
because
yeah, we will. Yeah,
because
and
this is
we're
because
gonna get
this is
stuff.
still it's still a little okay. We know what makes him tick, but I'm not quite hooked on
That's
who
fair.
he is.
That's
Uh,
fair. But yeah, we go to issue 4, which actually has my favorite cover of this whole event. I
I
really like the
think
cover of
I
this
think
one.
my favorite cover is just the iconic issue 1 cover.
That's fair. That's fair. But I
Like
really love the issue 4 cover.
yeah, I mean, it feels like it's doing an inverse of like the DC Trinity, except with
Yeah,
Aquaman and Barry. Uh,
yeah.
but yeah,
So we open on Fawcett City. We see the Shazam family watching an address from, again, President Obama. Johns really went for that. Um, so, but yeah, so they're debating what to do. Meanwhile, we get some more tie-in bait for Hal Jordan, who did have his own 3-part miniseries as well. Um,
I mean,
and
if
it was
Johns is in charge of who gets what tie, if who of who gets tie-ins, of course Hal Jordan's going to get some
yeah,
tie-ins.
yeah, totally fair. But it is like one of the best tie-ins of this whole run.
But
It was
they're
yeah.
basically sending Hal Jordan in on a suicide mission. Um, also,
Interestingly,
you
the bomb that he's taking is the Green Arrow made by Queen Industries, which did also have its own one shot, and Oliver Queen, where he's basically like a Tony Stark weapons manufacturer type character.
which again interest very that's an interesting idea
In a world
because
where like
that's
Oliver
almost the
Queen never became Green
antithesis.
Arrow, what is his life, you know?
Yeah. Also, I think it's Hector Hammond who's sending him off.
Yeah, yeah. So that's
Uh,
interesting.
that's that's very interesting. But
Hmm.
I like that Hal really hasn't changed. Like
Oh
he
yeah, like
really
Hal Jordan
hasn't.
is Hal Jordan. They didn't change his backstory. His dad's still dead. He still knows Carol Ferris. They still have a relationship in his tie-ins. It's just he never became Green Lantern.
Yeah, it's a very smart choice.
Yeah.
Uh, but anyway, back in Metropolis.
Yeah, so Thomas, Barry, and Vic are trying to fight off the soldiers to no avail when they are saved by the one and only Emily Sung, Element Woman, who is just one of the best things about this issue. I love the
She
way
is
she's written.
great. Um, because
Well, I love it. She comes in. My name's Emily Sung, but my top secret code name is Element Woman. Anyone want a juice box? I brought extra.
I brought extra
Um,
again.
and
This is where I'm like, this is delirium, basically. Like,
it is,
I
yeah. Her, I
um,
mean, her speech bubbles even have like these like little like pink clouds around them. I love
yeah,
it.
I originally thought they were love hearts. They are not love
No.
hearts.
That's just those. That's just pink
I,
clouds.
well, they're supposed to be molecules, like like atomic models when you see like the like circular spherical models of like atoms where like water will be one big red with two tiny little nubs of white coming off. I think that's what
Yeah.
they're supposed to be, and I
Okay.
think that's an adorable choice.
Hmm.
Um, Also, just the utter opposite of the Element Woman that I'm familiar with.
Right? If you only know Element Woman from the Sandman,
From the Sandman issue, which is one of the best
where she just
issues.
wants to die.
I mean, it's one of the best issues of the series.
It's great. I love Facade, but like it's just she just wants to fucking die. And
Whereas
then you have
Emily's song is who is full of life. It's like, I
yeah.
love your uniform. It's so red.
We learn that she's been following Cyborg around. Barry gets another like hit of this timeline's memories. And Thomas gives him an injection to calm him down.
Which
Was it
again, Thomas Wayne just having drugs, just
I
gonna
mean,
inject you with some drugs.
it makes
It makes
sense.
sense, but it's very character building that he would violate the consent of a patient and just keep fighting it. Don't forget my son, as I inject you with a saline, basically a saline solution.
But we go back over to the Shazam family, who we haven't mentioned up to this point, have a fucking tiger hanging around with
They
them.
have a tiger. Um,
I just love
okay,
that.
it takes the longest fucking time for the tiger to be addressed. Like, so I didn't know the
I
Shazam.
mean, it's in the first transformation when they show Captain Thunder. Like they show the tiger transforming too.
Yeah, but
Um,
also like they don't explain like how did the hell does anyone let these children have just a tiger? Uh,
it's all right. They have a tiger. It's
they,
all
they give
good.
an explanation later, but like there's just a tiger. There's just a tiger. Like it's it's there. I also I find interesting it really interesting just John's ideas on family here.
Hmm.
Because there's this moment where it's like oh only three of them are actually family, and like as in blood relatives, but really they're all family. Like
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
kind of the idea.
I mean,
Uh,
we brought this up so many times in the podcast, but I really do just love it. Like that's one of the things that you've really latched onto with DC Comics as a whole is their strong is this strong sense of family that they all have, and you really feel that here. It's really nice.
yes. Um,
But yeah, so Element Woman, Batman, Flash, and Cyborg all enter. Element Woman offers juice boxes again because of course that's great.
I I'm surprised. Oh no, Cupid does draw juice boxes. Someone takes a juice box.
Yeah, yeah,
Which I love this idea of a superhero just being like, well, I need to bring something to the team.
yeah,
I'll bring snacks.
yeah. It's great.
Um,
But yeah, so Barry is still knocked out. As Billy goes to check on him.
the
Um,
idea being that Billy might be able to use the lightning to jumpstart the Flash, and he
mhm.
tries and is
And he gets a
reverberated
bit
with.
of yeah, he gets a bit of like Barry's memories from his universe, and we see what regular universe Shazam is like. Now, actually, I am curious since you see this here. What do you know about Shazam or Captain Marvel as a character?
So I know he and Black Adam are like the two big enemies.
We see
Uh,
Black Adam here.
yes. And I know he's like got a family like
Hmm.
of,
We
and
see
I'm
we see
guessing
them there as well.
it's all these kids, but that's about it. Like
Okay.
as a
You,
character,
you
he
you don't know what the wizard is at the middle there at all?
I know the wizard is the one who like gave him his powers,
Okay.
and like the like each letter of Shazam stands for like I don't know if they say like a god
Yeah, they're all like yeah, each one of the gods. I can't remember
or
exactly what it
like
is. Like
mythological figures. Like
yeah, it's like the power of whatever, the wisdom of whatever. I know like Z is Zeus, things like that.
I know the
Uh,
S is the one of the S's is Solomon
yeah,
because
yeah.
yeah, hi, I was raised
There's
Catholic.
also only one S in Shazam, Jacob.
Oh right, it's a Z. Shit.
Right after I said that the Z is Zeus.
Yeah, right. I don't know why I was thinking there was a second S, but like the H is probably like Hercules or something.
Yeah.
Um,
But yeah, so okay, cool. Anyways, yeah, so Billy sees that. Barry wakes up and we find out that Hal Jordan is dead. And that's a shame.
and it hurts. It hurts
It does,
Barry.
because man, yeah, just again, we get that feeling that they were really close, and we know that.
The
But
news
just
declares this is it, everyone. This is the end.
yeah. Interestingly, I just want to bring up the Hal Barry relationship immediately pre Flashpoint, because one of the things that they did, because they got caught in this big mess of Blackest Night and Brightest Day back to back, and then go right into Flashpoint, right after Barry was brought back. They sort of bonded over the fact that they were some of the only resurrected DC characters that were still around, and that also Barry had only just recently been resurrected at the time.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Um,
Anyway, but yeah, so Barry and Thomas have a conversation together. And Thomas has basically given up on this entire world. I mean, he always
everyone's
has,
everyone's everyone's giving into nihilism, which I think is kind of part of the point of this timeline in general. This is a timeline where everyone gives into nihilism and heroes aren't there to have hope. Um,
And even then, like in the end, like the world is still awful. We don't actually fix this world.
no.
Like,
Again, a lot. If you're doing an alternate history
mhm.
story, this
And
is
for Jeff Johns, like being we've talked many times about like him being like the blockbuster guy and doing like these big epic fantasy stories. Like this is not that.
it's very
It's
blockbustery,
still got
but
some blockbuster elements, but certainly not your traditional blockbuster.
oh no,
It's very doom and gloom. It's ready to fucking tell you that the world sucks and there's no hope for anyone. Um,
everything is
the only hope that we find in the end, not to spoil the ending, but the only hope that we find in the end is that this world does get abandoned and does not
yeah.
and is not allowed to live on, which is fucking awful. Like,
Again,
it's so interesting though.
it draws on again one of my favorite elements of alternate universe tropes. I love it when alternate universe stories kind of do this.
Mhm.
Um, like
I mean, back to your Inferno reference,
yeah,
yeah,
like same deal.
yeah.
I also love that Barry's just like I want. I'm a hero. I'm going to go and help. I may not be able to do much, but I can try. Um, and Barry's the rallying cry.
Mhm.
Uh,
So we start to rally everyone together. We get Element Woman, Cyborg, and the Shazam kids back in. We start to we decided to like call in like all the others that Cyborg was in contact with. And there's not much time, so we have to like meet them there. Um, and that's about it. So we get in the this universe's bat plane, I guess, which it's Thomas Wayne still. He has a giant jet,
I
that
imagine this
carries
is.
all
I
of
think
them.
this one's just a regular private jet. Like it
Yeah.
also the design of it. You see it for one panel from the outside. Kind of looks like a technologically advanced, almost old-fashioned biplane, which
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
is cool. Um,
I can't remember what the because it's been a while since I've read the actual Batman tie-ins, but I can't remember what the larger universe thing is. Like if they know, if everyone knows that Thomas is Batman, because at the very least Jim knows. Gordon is well aware that Thomas is Batman, but I can't remember what it is outside of that. Who else knows?
well, I don't think they imply. I don't think they imply here that they don't know,
Hmm.
because there's this whole idea of it's like
But at the same time, Thomas is just flying a Thomas Wayne private jet to get them there.
yes.
So there's that. Anyway, so we arrive in New Themyscira. Um, and there's an awful battle already happening between Aquaman and Wonder Woman and the Amazons and the Atlanteans.
And
Um,
it's bloody.
mhm.
Um,
Also, the only reference that we really get here that this feud was started over Arthur and Diana being in love for a brief
yeah,
time.
which
So
I think that's something that needed. That's the one big thing I think just needed a bit more in the miniseries itself. Like,
Well, I mean, even then, like I said, like they separated them into two different tie-in miniseries, so they did get a six-issue mini altogether, which is longer than the actual Flashpoint event.
yeah, which is,
So
I mean, yeah, I have seen the omnibus. That is a lot of tie-ins.
yeah,
Um,
yeah. But anyway, so our team arrives. We have Enchantress with us now. The kids are now formed into Captain Thunder, and they have the giant fucking tiger with them. Um, Also, we learn that oh wait, no, not yet. Oh yes, actually, yeah. Enchantress is going to betray them. Now, what did you know about Enchantress before this? Were you at least familiar with her character, or know that
I
she
knew she was
exists?
the villain in the Suicide Squad film from like 2016, isn't she?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. She is. Anything else
Yeah,
outside of that?
that's it.
She's a character
Uh,
that I'm pretty sure this is the thing. This is the earliest thing that I know her from. I'm pretty sure she originated in the original John Ostrander Suicide Squad run.
ah.
Yeah. She then also became closely associated with Justice League Dark and the early New 52 stuff, and then joined the Suicide Squad again during Rebirth. So anyway, but here she is now. She betrays them, and uses her magic to separate the kids from Captain Thunder. And Diana takes this opportunity to kill fucking Billy Batson,
By
and
stabbing him through the heart.
it's actually worse in the animated movie, I think. I hate
Yeah.
that. I love it because it's brilliant, but like it's a horrible way that it's portrayed in the movie. But I think this is like really the moment that solidifies like no, this world needs to fucking go. There
This
is no hope
this
for
this
this
this is
world.
this is we
Um,
just killed a child.
yeah, and
And part of this also feels like Jeff Johns screaming into the void. You want dark and edgy comic readers? Fine, I'll give you dark and edgy.
here's me killing a fucking kid.
Yes.
So Barry
Uh,
like falls to his knees and says no, he's just a boy, just. And then above him stands a new figure
oh,
which says,
Barry, look what you did.
and it's Eobard Thawne standing there, full yellow reverse flash regalia and all that. Brilliantly drawn. One of Andy Kuper's best full pages in this mini,
The
and
destruction behind him. Again, he hasn't done anything this mini, which I think is important for
mhm.
making this entire thing work. Uh,
Oh fuck. I just flipped to the last issue because again it's split between all the tie-ins and the Omni. The tie-in that comes right before this, before the final issue, is the last issue of Hal Jordan. Um, and the fucking ending of that is the last thing Hal leaves for Carol is an engagement ring. And
oh,
oh, it's fucking brilliant. Oh, I love it. And isn't it Jimmy that gives it to him?
I don't know.
Jim Jordan. Yeah, Jim Jordan gives it to her. Oh, it's so good. Anyway, sorry, I love that. Anyway, going into the final issue of Flashpoint here. Another great cover here. Barry and Eobard together with Thomas being held up. And we get into it. Great big action sequence picking up exactly where we left off. And the big thing that Barry wants to know is what did you do to the world? And a lot of great evil monologuing from Barry here.
From Zoom, and I love it. It's like, oh, Barry, my idol, my inspiration. That's the beauty of all this madness. I didn't do anything, not a thing. You see, it turns out you're the villain today.
Oh, it's so good. It's so good. Now I think what you knew this twist already, right?
I knew this twist, but seeing it play out is brilliant.
Mhm.
Um,
Um,
because what this eventually turns into is a trope called the Xanatos Gambit, where the villain has become such a magnificent bastard, even if they lose, they still win.
yeah.
Uh, it's like, well, we just got to try to pick, and their heroes are left to pick up the pieces. Uh,
Mhm.
but we get this great idea that Barry found out that Zoom killed his mother.
Yeah.
So he ran to the past, found him, and stopped him from killing his mother. And the implication here, and I think it's kind of explained just a little later. So
I mean,
this is going to be very comic booky. So apparently later on, there's this thing called a cosmic treadmill,
yes. You did.
which
Have you not
is
heard of this at all?
I didn't
Oh, you didn't know the Cosmic
I
Treadmill?
didn't
Oh, that's like
cosmic
one of those super
treadmill.
iconic Flash things. Okay, all right.
But I like this idea that Barry can't actually time travel correctly and properly
Um,
without a cosmic
Yeah, well,
treadmill.
you he could hypothetically if he had a ridiculously long, clean stretch of land to run on, and was able to run for long enough on a completely uninterrupted scale that he could
Yeah,
do it.
but the
You
idea is
know?
that him traveling back in time is what broke the universe.
Yeah.
Uh,
So I think it's actually explained a little better in the animated film where they literally show the ripples of the time barrier being broken. So it's like the ripple that sends the Superman's rocket over to Metropolis, the ripple that sends the bullet into a different direction, killing Bruce, things like
the film
that.
also explicitly acknowledges that uh, stuff had already happened. Like when Nora Allen died, Superman would have already been on Earth.
Hmm.
Like it's, I think that's one thing Johns could have just made just a little more explicit here, because
Yeah.
at least in this final issue, just because this is your wrap up, but it also then goes to show subtly why the universe then will be rebooted completely because he doesn't have a cosmic treadmill in this universe.
And why things will be just ever so slightly different. So when we do return to our regular universe, things will be ever so slightly different. Just enough that you still have a regular DC continuity, but say Superman didn't meet Doomsday at the same time that he did originally, or
Also,
say
the time scale is only 5 years and utterly ridiculous because of that.
moving on from that, I wanted to comment quickly just a little thing that bugs me on the big two-page spread that says Flashpoint Part 505. It's the only time that it says that. Every issue before this, it says chapter 105,
So
chapter 205, and
what's
now here it
interesting,
says it now says part 505.
so in the trade, we don't get, I don't, they don't reprint the titles.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh
I'm
shit! So
get,
you just have the full two-page spread of Barry saying
we just have
yes.
the full two-page
There's no
spread, and
title.
there's no title.
Oh wow. Okay. All right. That's just a stupid thing here then. All right.
Yeah,
And if you have
so
the original issues, all right, cool.
yeah, I
Never,
mean, I
never
imagine,
mind.
I imagine they took it out because this is just meant to be the actual Sabbath. But whereas in that giant Omni, you're gonna want to know what you're reading.
Yeah, well, they
Um,
do say before you get into each issue, like here it says like Flashpoint Part 5, but like in the actual title of the issue, it says Flashpoint Part 505. Every time before that, it said chapter. It just bugs me. Whatever. Anyway, so we get into it. We really see just how fucked up Barry is from that knowledge, just knowing that he caused this in the end. Thomas tries to get in the way. Eobard takes him out of action. Um, and
slams
we
his
just
head.
and again, just this whole sequence of Barry getting his ass handed to him as Eobard monologues this entire time. And it's so good. I love this one line that he has. That means no matter what happens to Barry Allen in the past, present, or future, I will still exist. I am removed from the timeline. I exist outside of it.
Right.
You don't matter to me. I could kill you in your mother's womb, or I can kill you this very second. I can hurt you, but you cannot hurt me, Barry. The legendary Flash cannot hurt Eobard Thawne. And then a sword
Slit.
goes through his fucking chest. Which I always do love the animated film, but this is so much more metal. Where did Thomas get this sword from?
It's an Amazon sword.
Yeah, but like, did he just fucking pick it up between the time that
Yes.
Eobard handed his ass to him? Like,
Yeah. 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 I
I
think that's what
love that.
happens.
I love that, and it's so fucking metal. He stabs Reverse Flash with a fucking sword.
And he has just this great quick quip. What about me? Doctor's
Doctor's
advice.
advice.
When you're in the middle of a war, don't stand still.
I love that. Oh,
And
it's
Ray's
so
like,
good.
you killed him. And then Element One, ooh, his costume is kind of like yours, Flash, but I like yours way better. Who was that? And it's
It's so good.
and Barry is just like looking on in horror throughout all this, like that was a murder. Meanwhile, the world is starting to like end because the war is still happening. The resistance shows up.
Great
Um,
to have the Resistance here. I really love them. um, but yeah,
is the blonde character supposed to be like Black Canary? Maybe.
no, it's
No.
not. I don't think
Uh,
that's actually a character that I don't think gets touched on in any of the tie-ins.
Weird.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah,
Anyway,
then
so yeah, battle breaks out. I mean, it's not breaks out. It's been happening.
Enchantress goes for a power play,
Mm,
just trying to have some fun. Uh,
uh,
Meanwhile,
Superman
Superman shows
comes
up.
in. Um, and I love this bit. Where Barry's just vindicated by the fact that Superman comes in to help. It says, I knew he'd be here. Um, his memories get flooded with these new memories. Also, just Gorilla Grodd shows up, who did also get a tie-in to himself. He got one issue to himself. And I forget what led him to being here in this battle, but I love that he's here.
Um,
But yeah, so Thomas Wayne is slowly dying as the world goes to hell around them. Um,
Cyborg gets hundreds of seismic readings. Whatever Atlantis was planning on doing to sink Britain, they're doing it. Damn it, they're going to crack the planet in half. The planet starts to explode.
mhm.
Um,
In the movie they expand on this as being Captain Atom, which I don't think they don't say that anywhere here.
no.
Um, but yeah, so Thomas is slowly dying. He tells Barry to just abandon this world, to run away, to get out of here, and to fix everything finally. Um, he gives Barry a letter to deliver to someone when he gets back. Um, And last thing he says before he dies is, "I'm sorry about your mother." Barry runs away. Great moment. I love the art
I
here.
love the way the running is just stylized. There's a point where
Yeah.
he flips in between panels.
hmm
Like,
and in trying to get to his past self and focusing on getting to his mother, he does arrive at his mother, just Flashpoint mother.
at
And
the, he hasn't time traveled yet. This is just
yeah,
in the present.
yeah.
Uh,
This is a scene that I'm really sad they cut from the film because it's one of my favorite scenes from this comic.
I think it's
Um,
also just the apotheosis of like why Barry makes the decision to actually fix it because he's still kind of just dealing with the fact that, but I'll lose my mother again.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah. Just because Thomas told him to go and abandon everything because it's awful doesn't mean he's still okay with losing his mom. Um, and so he has just this really genuine conversation with her. Um, and they both decide that it's the right thing to do in the end. And
she asks how many people died because of this. How many, Barry?
he says millions. But I won't let you die. I won't let this life be erased. It won't be. It happened, Barry, one way or another. The life we had together happened, and I couldn't have been prouder or happier to have a son like you. You have to let me go, Barry. I don't want to, neither do I, but I'll be with your father. I'll be okay.
And then
Oh
we
my God. So good. So good.
so
Um, yeah, so Barry runs. He goes to his past self. You see how just genuinely broken he is by this. He rips him off the cosmic treadmill, and we arrive at this wonderful two-page spread, which is pretty much one of the only indications in this whole comic that the New 52 is about to be a thing.
this is the indication.
Yeah.
Because
Um,
he sees three timelines.
yes,
One
and we
being
see. Go ahead.
like Vertigo, I'm guessing, because that's Constantine right there. Um,
Well, that's a lead into Justice League Dark. It's showing the new 52, basically.
is it? I thought the stuff on top was supposed to be like the universe is coming to get away. Yeah, that's
Yeah. As I understand it, it's the three timelines are the timeline pre-Flashpoint, Flashpoint, and the new 52.
oh. So they're all coming together. Okay, that's you know,
That's how I always understood it, at least. I could be wrong about that.
because this is just one two-page spread just to show this.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
think it needed
it's
another page or something
just to
just
make
to
it a
make
bit
it a
more
little
clear,
more
yeah.
clear.
Now you do actually know this character standing at the middle here. She has shown up in Justice
Justice
League by
League.
Jeff Johns. This character's name is Pandora. I could tell you that now. I think you knew that already, though, didn't you?
They call her Pandora in those issues, so I'm
They
guessing
do. Okay.
I know she becomes important for the Jeff Johns Justice League run.
Yeah, yeah. In what would be your next Jeff Johns reading, Trinity War? Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh,
But yeah, so we run through this timeline. We basically create the new 52. We get a parallel of the first scene from this comic where he wakes up in his crime lab, and everything seems to be all right. But he goes over to the Batcave. It's the first place he goes, and he sees Bruce.
this is the first indication where we get that something's different, mainly because the Flash's costume is different, ever so
Yeah,
slightly.
and so is
It,
Batman's,
so is
and
Batman's.
and also it's gonna sound weird to say, but also because Batman is Bruce Wayne and not Dick Grayson.
Wait, are you telling me that immediately before Flashpoint it was still Dick Grayson as Batman?
At least in the main Batman title, it was still Dick. Yeah.
That just cements it further that they were not planning for the new 52. Like, they did not give writers enough time to wrap up their shit.
Yeah,
They,
very
they,
true. There,
they really didn't.
you are absolutely correct about that, Jacob.
I feel like I need to
But
blame
anyway,
someone, so I'm blaming Didio.
probably Didio. Yeah. But anyway,
Anyway,
because keep in
now
mind,
we have the
we're
best.
right now we're reading this in a time where Jeff Johns didn't have as much power at DC that he does today. Flashpoint is one of the reasons that he has as much power that he does today, but he didn't have that power at this time. He was just chosen as the guy that is the most trusted head writer at DC at the time,
Yeah, I
to
mean,
execute this. So.
Someone let Dan DiDio make them reboot the universe. Anyway, we get the best scene of the comic now.
Yeah, oh yeah, this
Like,
is it. This is the best one. I don't know if you remember way back in the villain's journey when we recorded that. I asked you if you knew about the one thing that Bruce was looking at in a case, and it was a paper, and this is it.
oh, that's what this
It yeah,
is.
so he still holds on to that letter. So anyway, so he tells Bruce about this universe, and you know, and Bruce like it says like okay, so this all happened, and Barry eventually says that like okay, but what's weird is when I came back into this timeline, I still kept all my memories from Flashpoint. Like I still can remember growing up with my mother, blowing birthday candles out, whatever, you know, the time that I had with her. And he says, I'm guessing it could be a temporal after effect or the result of chronal residue, but still in my bloodstream. Bruce says, disregarding all the scientific shit that Barry just said, Bruce says, or it could be a gift, Barry, a gift to make it all a little easier. And Barry then hands Bruce the note that Thomas gave
There's
to
one
him.
other thing. I didn't tell you that yet. There was someone I met there. Someone I couldn't have saved the world without. He gave me this. And
He hands him the note. So obviously the little scribblings that we had in the first issue were the note to Bruce. Um, and it's so fucking good. So Bruce takes off his mask even to read it. And we see Bruce Wayne openly weep at this, ending on the signature of the note. Love always your father, Thomas.
Thomas,
With the best line ever. You're one hell of a messenger. Thank you,
thank you.
Barry.
You're
And
welcome,
it
Bruce.
oh, it's so
The
good.
end.
It's so good. It's
And
so
that's how this
fucking good.
story ends.
Yeah,
Like, that's that's it. And that's a beautiful ending.
yeah, it really is. Oh God, I love it. I love it so much.
Uh,
It's such a good story.
and it does make me want to read more Flash. It accomplished its goal, at least in terms of why it's here for the podcast.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah, and also you know we've read enough New 52. You should at least know how it started.
yes,
And also considering when we do eventually go into Justice League, you know, having that Trinity War setup is there. Like, when we return to Justice League, I should say.
yes, because
Um,
it's a lot. It's a lot.
yeah. So
Uh,
there's all
what's
that.
I also I will say what's very interesting about this whole epilogue is that it reminded me so much of The Wizard of Oz. Like
Yeah. Okay.
I which is interesting to say, but it felt very much like, and you were there, and you were there, but in like a good way. Like,
Yeah, 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 I get that. Um,
um,
Also on the animated film, which I mean we've been talking about for a lot of this. Um, but I do love that they have Kevin Conroy to do Bruce in this, and it's a small appearance at the very beginning, very end. But I'm so glad that Conroy is the one that gets the hell of a messenger line.
well,
Like
yeah, I
I can't
mean,
imagine any other Batman voice selling that as well as Conroy.
well, also just the casting in that entire movie. Like,
Oh yeah,
they have they have Tim Daly's son playing Superman,
yeah,
and they have Dana Delaney as Lois Lane, and then that's just that
as they fucking should.
she sells her scenes. Interestingly, it's Great Lyle playing Martha Wayne.
Hmm.
Uh, and I want to see a version of a more film version just to have her version of the Joker
Hmm.
because it's that's fascinating.
Yeah, I
Uh,
would love to see just an adaptation of I think it's called Night of Vengeance. I think Night of Vengeance. I think that's the name of the tie-ins. It's a really great three-part series, and
uh,
I would love to see that adapted somehow.
yeah, I think the film version makes a lot of the right adaptation choices just to make it work as a film and kind of improve on the story a little bit.
Yeah, yeah,
Like adding just a little more prologue with Barry and his mother, um, and then adding a decent action sequence to start with the whole Justice League.
yeah, yeah. And I mean, you know, for a comic event like Flashpoint, it works the way it does
It
because
works.
you know what you're getting into when you're reading a comic. But for an animated film, you know, it's good to know what the rest of those characters are like pre-Flashpoint.
It sets up a status. It sets up a status quo that then can be disrupted and then replaced.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
Also,
Um,
the film doesn't shy away from the darker moments either. Like,
oh no! In fact, there are some cases where it makes them darker. Like I said, the Billy
yes.
Batson death is hardcore.
The Steve Trevor death is just gave me
Oh
chills.
God, yeah,
Like,
yeah. That's
in the film, they hang him like literally, and it's
mhm.
ooh, it's certainly an image.
um also I will say I will stand by. They should have kept this Thomas killing Zoom with a sword.
They really should have.
He shoots him through the brain with in the film, but they should have kept the sword.
Yes,
Which
I mean,
interestingly, Zoom's death in Flashpoint does play a role in a later DC animated film that I won't spoil because I do want you to watch it someday. Um,
okay. Well,
yeah,
also, here's my question. Does this mean that this version of Zoom is dead for at least the start of the New 52?
yeah. The Reverse Flash in the New 52 is a completely different character. It's not even like Eobard Thawne or any of the other versions of the character. It's a completely new person.
I think that's a
Um,
smart decision.
yeah, and I think when we get to it, like you'll find who it is very interesting.
I mean, especially since one thing about the New 52 that in some ways it succeeded really well, in some ways it failed, kind of a bit, mainly in terms of having Batman still have his full history. Um, Whenever they take advantage to actually change things and establish new things and realize we now essentially have a blank slate where we can do different things and interesting things with the characters, that's when it succeeded.
Yeah.
And it was really good for new readers. Like, it's clear that there's a reason we didn't start with New 52 Batman when we started reading, when we started the podcast. We started
Hmm.
with another classic Batman story and got
Yeah.
acclimated to that.
Hmm.
Because they kept most of Batman's history. I also just think it's a very just overall as a story, it's one that I think everyone should read once, at least, just in
Yeah,
general.
definitely. I agree.
Like this, like I know, Joe, you were disappointed that I don't think I loved this as much as you did.
Hmm.
Um, but I appreciate what it does. And I'm glad they keep I'm glad they've kept the tie-ins in print and available.
Yeah,
Despite
yeah, definitely.
um,
And there are a lot of like really good tie-ins out there
yeah,
that I think are worth the read.
yeah, and it's not, say, the worst event where absolutely vital information is kept in the tie-ins, like actual plot progression. Just a lot of really almost near vital world building is kept in the tie-ins, and
I
that's the
get
big
that.
mistake.
But again, also I wouldn't knock points from the comic for not doing that world building because that world building is there, just not in things that you've read.
Per, Perhaps, um, but still, it's Jeff Johns really earning his place. Like,
Yeah, yeah,
this is
definitely.
this is why they gave him
They gave him three major
3 books.
DC titles to write at the start of the New 52.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, three. Okay, yeah,
yeah,
because
yeah,
it's
yeah, Justice League Aquaman, and he was still on
three.
Green Lantern. So
Because and he kept, I think, didn't he keep the Justice League all the way through to the end?
yeah, he did the entire 52 issues, maybe like bar like one or two if they were like part of something else. But I think they were all pretty much him.
Yeah,
And obviously a rotating cast of artists.
cast of artists,
Um,
because you're not going to get Jim Lee for 52 issues.
yeah. Imagine if he fucking did. Like, I mean, a lot of it's Ivan Reese too, so that's really
So
great.
that's great, but Jim Lee is a brilliant artist who overworks himself,
Yeah, very much so.
very much
Uh,
so.
yeah.
Um,
But yeah, so I guess that about does it.
that
Definitely read
about does it.
Flashpoint. Watch the Flashpoint Paradox movie because it's a near perfect adaptation.
Is the only my one like real complaint about the film, Aquaman, like the design doesn't work.
It's just the design, I would
The
say.
design, and well, there's some odd line reads here and there from the guy playing. It was just like, that's it's a bit odd
Okay.
the way you did that. Um, but yeah, also just stellar cast. Like,
Oh
Michael B.
yeah.
Jordan plays Cyborg.
Yeah, he's so good. Yeah, the cast is brilliant. It really, really is. But anyway, so if Jacob already knows what the next episode is because we talked about it last time. We're reading the first volume of the New 52 Flash title by Francis Manapul and Brian Bucoletto. Um, So yeah, so that'll be great. It's the first 8 issues. It's called The Flash Move Forward, and that'll be next episode.
That'll be
So,
next
and
episode. So
not much more to say beyond that. I'm really
come,
excited to reread it though,
yeah,
because
come back in 2 weeks. I have like no expectations
yeah, you
because
don't really know what you're getting into with
it's
this.
like
Like
I'm like
Flashpoint, you knew a lot of what you were getting into, but this should be really interesting. So
yes, this will be a time.
yeah, I'm
And then
excited to see what you think.
and then after that we'll be starting.
Something entirely new.
Yeah,
Well, I mean, okay, I want to talk right now actually about this. So you know what episode 30 is. I
I
want to
know
say
what
that right now.
episode 30
We're
is.
starting the countdown to episode 30.
Oh
Before
no.
yeah, we're coming up on it. So Jacob knew beforehand that episode 30 was the first episode that I had chosen for the podcast. Um, with the explicit purpose of him reading a bad story.
Let's
It was
not
the first.
reveal it until episode 29 though. I want to keep
Yeah,
our
oh yeah.
viewers in
It
the
was just it
dark.
was the first comic that I ever chose because I was like I wanted to read something actively bad. Something like because again, I'm not gonna start Jacob off reading like bad comics, you know. I chose like good things to begin with, and good, at least what I considered good things up to this point.
Yes.
If they were bad, it was like individual bad issues or a bad part of a story.
Or that one time. High
But
death in
nothing
the
nothing
family.
that was overall bad.
Yeah,
So
nothing, yeah.
nothing that you completely regret reading.
No,
You
no.
will regret reading episode 30.
I regret it and
So
I haven't even read it yet.
yeah,
Uh,
so Jacob knows what episode 30 is. We're starting our countdown to that. So to give an idea of what's coming up episode wise, so episode 27 next episode will be our the first volume of Flash. Episode 28 is technically a lead into our next block of episodes. It's not officially part of that block, I would say, but it is kind of there.
it is,
Um,
and I have some utterly ludicrous guesses that I think are totally wrong.
but you do know that the block after that officially starting with episode 29 is another Batman block.
Yes.
So
So essentially to celebrate our first year, entering our second year, we will be going back to Batman after the
yeah,
Flash.
yeah. So that'll be fun.
So
But yeah, so until next time, follow us on Twitter. I am at Jomo with 3 underscores. He is at Newt5996. Those will be linked down in the description. I can speak today. So yeah, check those out in the description. Also, you can find Flashpoint on Amazon. I will leave an Amazon link down in the description below, as well as our next reading to The Flash Move Forward. You can buy that as well. Those will all be in the description. You could check those out. And I think that about does it.
if you
So
haven't already, subscribe to Blood Donut Studios. As we said at the top
yes.
of the episode, there are lots
Absolutely.
of fun things happening in the off weeks.
Yeah.
Some which are going to be YouTube exclusives.
Yeah, definitely. And especially some things that I talked about before we started recording today that I personally may be working on in the
Maybe
near
we're
future. So be on the lookout for that. So
um,
I guess that about does it. All right.
yes.
Anything else? We good?
I think we've covered everything.
Fantastic. All right. So until next time, this has been Joey Morgan.
And Jacob Licklider.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.